What's up, everybody? This is episode 27 of Hoops Talk with Dave's Joint. Shout outs to everybody that's supported this venture so far. For those who haven't, go check out our content on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram TV. But without further ado, we have a special guest over here, Coach Robert Jones, the head coach of Norfolk State University, who's also a native of New York City. Coach, thank you for coming on to share your testimonial with me.
Hey man, how you doing, man? Appreciate you having me.
Indeed. So we're gonna kick it off. My first question is, what's your coaching philosophy?
Well, I think coaching philosophy, can make up many different things. But I think, the main thing we try to do in our culture and our philosophy here in Norfolk State is just have a philosophy of playing hard, trying to break down some barriers, and things like that. As far as an X and O standpoint, I mean, offensively, we do a lot of different things. We have some set plays, we have some motion plays. I'm more of a set kind of guy. I like quick hitters, things like that. I'm not really a full motion kind of guy. And defensively, we're going to do a lot of different things. Defensively try to keep you off balance, whether it's man-to-man or zone or pressing or things like that. Try to not give you a heavy dose of one thing, and try to keep you on your toes for all 40 minutes.
Awesome. So my first question is, my legitimate question is, when did basketball start out for you?
It started out for me after I got cut in my sixth grade team. I went to
Wow.
I went to PS 160 in Jamaica, Queens. I think they renamed it Walter Francis Bishop Elementary School, something like that. So I went there, and I used to play baseball, and then I was a pitcher. And as time went on, you grow up in a neighborhood, everybody wants to gravitate towards basketball. So I tried out for my sixth grade team, and I didn't make it. And a lot of my other friends made it, and the sixth grade tryouts. Now looking back, it was so easy. It was like just making a layup and making a few passes, dribbling a little bit, and I didn't make the team, and that was like so embarrassing. And from that day forward, I just made sure that I never got cut again from any team, and I never got cut again. So I just went to all out, just locked in, savage mode about basketball, and was able to have a decent playing time, and now obviously coaching basketball.
Cool. So what part of Queens are you from, and what's the basketball culture like in the borough?
Well, what was the second question you said?
What's the basketball culture like in the borough?
Oh, okay. I'm from South Jamaica, Queens. So basketball culture, I mean, is big in South Jamaica. I mean, you have like guys like Rayford Austin who came from there. Your late Dave Edwards came from there. You got a whole long list of people that came from South Jamaica that played basketball. So, those parks like Ajax Park, 48 Park, it was like big tournaments and things like that. Lincoln Park tournament. I know they do some good things with Nike there now at Lincoln Park. So those are always big tournaments to play in. I know a lot of times people, look at the Dykmans and the Rutgers and things like that. It's outside of the borough. But, if you played in Lincoln, you played against some good people. If you played at Ajax, you played against some good people. The first time I ever seen Alamo play, rest in peace to him too, was in Lincoln Park, and it was like, he was incredible, so it was like you got a chance to see a lot of these good players come through the parks that were known in Queens. So, it was definitely a good culture of basketball, and, everybody gravitated towards playing basketball. Honestly, I don't even know how I played baseball at first and I played basketball. I think my father was a baseball guy, and he really liked the Mets and things like that. So he got me into playing baseball, and first, and then after a while I gravitated towards basketball. And after I got taller, and of course people start pulling you into basketball when you get taller.
So when you were younger, what were some of your favorite tournaments to play in?
When I was like like high school and college age, like it was like those tournaments that I mentioned, like Ajax, your Lincoln, your 48 Park, and then also when you go out of town, it was like, I played in a Rucker one time. I played in Kingdom before. I don't know if Kingdom still go on. I know Dykeman kind of took over for that a little bit, but Kingdom, I played in that before, and then in Brooklyn I played in Soul and Hole before too. So you try to coming up, you try to play as many places you can just to test your skill, just to see, if you're any good, And I went to high school in Brooklyn. I went to Brooklyn Tech High School. So, although I lived in Queens, I was very familiar with Brooklyn as well too, especially the basketball.
So talk about your 4 years at Brooklyn Tech.
Well, actually, I did 3 years there because I went to junior high school from 7th, 8th, and 9th grade.
Okay.
So like I went to high school in 10th, 11th, 12th. Because I went to Russell Sage Junior High School in Forest Hills, New York, and then I went to Brooklyn Tech after that. So my 3 years there, I made the varsity team as a sophomore. I was like the first sophomore to make it. I think since it's a Conrad McCray, I think, to make the team.
Wow.
And because when I wanted to try out, everybody was like said, you don't take sophomores, and I said, well, I'm gonna try, and I made it. And I played, I didn't play that much, but I played a little bit. Then I played as a junior. I averaged like 11, 12 points as a junior. And then my senior year, I didn't play at all. Myself and Coach Gigliello, who's still there now, who actually we're good friends now. Coach G, Stephen Gigliello. But it was like when he coached me there, he would get mad. This was before, the day and age of people sending out video clips and YouTube videos and highlight videos and stuff like that. So you have to send out your newspaper clippings, to different colleges and things like that if you couldn't get, recruited. And for some reason, he got mad that I was sending my clippings out. And I don't know why, really, and we talked about it. And it was so long ago that he actually forgot why he got mad about it, honestly. And, I didn't play my senior year, so I had to go to like a couple of different exposure games and stuff like that. And I ended up playing at SUNY New Paltz, which was Division III, and I was able to make Division III All-American up there. So, because I probably shouldn't have been there anyway, but I didn't play my senior year. So,
talk about your 4 years at New Paltz, because it's a school probably about an hour outside the city. You can take that Trailways bus up there, leaves you right off campus. Like, talk about your time at the school.
New Paltz was fun, man. I'm not even going to take anything away from that. I know people have fun at all these big schools and Division I schools and stuff like that, but I had a great time at New Paltz. It was a good mix of people. I mean, you had, white, black, Spanish, Chinese, like a good melting pot of everybody, and like a good percentage too. It wasn't like you only had like 10% black. It was like it felt like it was like 25% of everything. And kind of like mixed in. So I went there, and I did 4 years there, and I finished up there like the 6th leading scorer, and the 2nd leader rebounder, and all time in blocks up there. So now I think I'm like 10th leading scorer, but I still have the other rebounding and block stuff still going on. So, but it was fun, man. I mean, the grind of college basketball. That was the first time you play against grown men. My first couple of days there is like I'm an 18-year-old kid, and you go against 21, 22-year-old. The strength is a little different. The speed is a little different. And if you want to survive, you got to adjust real quick, to it. And then also, off the court, these are grown men, it's like they have a different look on things than 18-year-olds. So, and, it made you grow up fast. And it was a great experience though, man. I would, I don't know how New Paltz is exactly today, but for me, it was perfect. I mean, it was a great experience. And like you said, it was only an hour and a half from the city. So if I did want to get back to the city, I can, but it was far enough away that I can, get away from the city too. Yeah. And that Trailways bus is definitely a bus that I went on plenty of times.
It's cheap too.
Yeah.
Metro North prices.
Yeah, for sure.
So then you went off to coach at Bard College after graduation. Like, talk about your first job, that first coaching experience.
Well, actually, I coached at Bard while I was still at New Paltz because I did 5 years academically at New Paltz because I switched from electrical engineering, which was kicking my butt, when I'm trying to be a basketball player too. But I switched to business, so like I still had to finish up with another year. So during that year, my assistant coach at New Paltz actually got the job at Bard, and being that I was a pretty good player and Bard really wasn't a good team, he just wanted me to come over and just practice with the guys so they could get like a feel of a decent player, and it went from that to like doing scouting reports to recruiting to like all of a sudden sitting on the bench, and I really got tricked into being a coach, honestly. And so I did that for my last year of studies, at New Paltz, and then I ended up doing 2 years at New Paltz being a coach.
Talk about, coaching your alma mater.
It was interesting at first because some of the guys I was coaching, I played with, you know,
Mm.
So that was a different dynamic. I think that I was able to earn their respect because you know how it is. It's like if you're a good player, people kind of respect you anyway, because they kind of they kind of envy you a little bit, but they don't say it because they're your teammates, But so you know how that go. But it's like some of the kids that I coached at New Paltz, they might have been like a freshman when I was a senior or a sophomore. So like they seen the work that I put in and seen the results that I had. So like it was kind of easy to actually tell them different things that like, they didn't just look at me as a teammate anymore, So and I kind of set the standard. Like I try to like not hang out with them as much, as I used to try to separate that I'm a coach now and not a player and not your teammate anymore. Now I can't say that was the easiest thing in the world because it was hard. I mean, I was, 22 years old, 22 years old. And it was like, I still wanted to go to the parties they were going to, I still wanted to live that college life a little bit, but I had to separate, more of being a coach than, just a teammate. So it was trying at first, but it was cool though.
Then the following year after New Paltz, you wound up going to St. Mary's High School, and you were one of the coaches on that 2005 team with Danny Green. Talk about, that year and coaching Danny Green.
Well, I was a freshman head coach and a varsity assistant coach. So, I thank Tim Cluse to this day, for giving me the opportunity to be a freshman head coach because even though it was only a freshman head coach, like to get a head coach experience early, it pays dividends like now because I was able to experience that early in my life when you call a timeout and everybody's looking at you, and stuff like that, for answers. But, the team that we had, the varsity team that we had that year, was incredible, man. I think we finished 25-1, maybe 28-1. I forgot exactly what the record was, but we had got to like number one in the country and things like that. And it was like, that was incredible. Because it wasn't just Danny. It was like, it was Tyrone Hansen who went to, to Monmouth, I think, or something like that. And then they had another Tyrone Johnson. Tyrone Johnson went somewhere. Then Alik Pauline ended up going to JUCO. He actually came to Norfolk State when I got here. So he was a Division I player. So it was like 4 or 5 or 6 Division I players on that team. And then, in high school, if you get 6 Division I players on one team, you're going to be pretty good, So Danny was a tireless worker. To this day, me and Danny still have a pretty good relationship. I can't say I had like a whole bunch to do with Danny's development because I got there at the end of it, but it's like we had at the time that we was there, we had some workouts and we, some good rapport that we had. And, the thing that I would say with Coach Cluse, he used to ride Danny, like he was the 13th man on the bench, and I think to try and give him some of that toughness, to like push himself to the edge. Sometimes Cluse would ride him so much. I'm like, Jesus Christ, isn't this guy McDonald's All-American? Like, but he would ride him, man. But it all paid off. And now you see what Danny's doing in the NBA. And I think a lot of it that's from that foundation that was set at St. Mary's.
So Cluse leaves and then you get the varsity job at St. Mary's. Like, talk about your 2-year tenure there as the varsity coach.
At first, it was like when I got the job, Jack McCarter, who was the AD then, he called me and said, hey, man, you got the job. I had to interview in front of the committee and all this other stuff like that, So even though I was the freshman head coach, it wasn't like just a bump. I had to go through the whole process, and I was able to win, that process, and I got the job. And to be honest with you, at first, man, it was a lot of different pressure. I think I was 25 years old when I got that job, and of course, coming from what just happened when Danny was there, you 25-1, it was like a lot of pressure because there was still some guys returning, but most of the team had actually left, and then it was some guys returning, and then like we had my freshman team had like guys like Scott Machado who was like doing pretty well for himself, so like he was able to move up, to varsity, and we kind of put it together. We went 20-5 that first year that I was there. We went 20-5, but I was the only black coach in the Long Island Catholic League, though, and I think I was actually the first black coach in the Long Island Catholic League. So that was a different dynamic too. It's like, people looking at you a little different. Sometimes I would walk into the gym, and I had Caucasian assistants, and they would think that they were the head coaches. They're like, "Oh, coach, your locker room's over here," and they're like, "No, that's the coach, right? Right there behind us." So
wow,
it was a different. It was definitely a different dynamic, man. Coaching Long Island Catholic high school, basketball. We did some good things. We went to Hawaii, played a tournament out there, and did some other stuff. We played tournaments, try to go across the country. But you definitely got some different looks as in those different settings in Long Island.
So when did Norfolk State or the opportunity of Norfolk State come into play?
The second year of end of the second year at St. Mary's, the head coach then was Coach Anthony Evans. He was my assistant coach actually at New Paltz too, and he was assistant coach at Norfolk. And they elevated him up on an interim basis. And he had called me, and he had always kind of said that if he got the job, maybe he would give me a call, stuff like that. But man, it's like it's only 353 Division I coaches in the world. Really, you can't say in the world. So it's like for him to get that situation, no one really thought he was gonna get that situation. So when he got it, he called me up, and I had already we talked about. I already had like a 6-year resume. So it wasn't like it was just like a total like hookup. It was like I had some backing, and then I got the job here, and I came down here. I came on a visit, like I was a recruit. Came on like an official visit. I liked what I saw, and I moved down here from New York. Something I thought I would never do. I thought I would never leave New York. Honestly, you're a New Yorker. You like, man, New York is the best place in the world. I'm never leaving New York. And stuff. And I've never been back. Like, I mean, not to stay. That is.
Yeah, like it's definitely a culture shock when you move into the South, because we're all used to trains and buses, but down there you really have to have public transportation, because everything is very, very slow paced in the South.
Yeah, and the best thing about where I'm at, like I'm at Virginia Beach, is that like it's not like so slow. You know what I'm saying? It's just a little slower.
Right.
It's like kind of like that moderate feel. Like there's still plenty of city things I could do. But it is like slower, and transportation definitely is different. Like you got to have a car out here. That's why it's like there's a car lot on every corner out here, because everybody's buying a car. Because you got to have one.
Right.
Up there, I didn't get my license until I was 25 years old in New York. I didn't even have my license.
Well,
kids got their license at 15, 16 years old. Because
yeah.
like it was like I was in a rush to get a car, a driver's license in New York, because you can go to the bus and train run all night.
Right.
And then back then it was the taxis. I know now it's Uber and stuff like that, but
right.
you can figure out
another
a way to
thing.
get somewhere 3 a.m, if you needed to. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, because having a car is a huge expense, something that a lot of people are just not ready for.
Yeah. I mean, especially with the rent and mortgage prices in New York, it's like,
oh boy,
you almost have to choose between a car or a house. And of course, you're gonna choose the house every time.
Yeah.
So it's like it's tough, man.
Oh man. So yeah, so the 2012 season, you guys made it to the NCAA tournament. Talk about that spectacular season.
Man, that was still one of my not one of probably my greatest basketball memory. I was the associate head coach on that team, and like most of that team I recruited as a recruiter coordinator. Like we had Kyle O'Quinn from New York, and we had Marcos Tamaris from New York. We had who else we had from New York? We had Jamel Fuentes from Brooklyn. We had like 8 New Yorkers: Quasim Pugh, AJ Rogers, who played at St. Anthony's. That's 5 right there. We had 8, like from 8 New Yorkers, because it was a big thing about that. And the previous year, people don't realize that we were 12-20 the previous year, and like it was like people were like talking about like getting rid of us, what I'm saying, as a staff.
Wow.
And it was like we were all like the team was all juniors and sophomores, but we were 12-20, and then the next year we went 26-10. So it's like it was a blessing that the administration was able to stick with us, because somebody would have walked into a 26-win team and they would look like they look like the Messiah, because they took a 12-win team to a 26-win team when that team was already built. It was just they were just young, and you had to get older. So I mean, we went to the NCAA tournament. When we got chosen to play Missouri, it was my scout. I told the team, I said, we're going to win. And the reason why I said that is because like Missouri was like playing like 4 guards, 1 big, and things like that. And that's something that we saw in the MEAC like all year. Now it's a better guard that we were playing, and but it was like the same style. Like that style wasn't going to bother us. That style that year like bothered some of those high majors, because the high majors sometimes be so big, and then you got these guards running circles around you that you're not used to that. Missouri, I forgot. Missouri's record was incredible that year. But then we went out there, and when the game was tied at halftime, it's like, oh man, we might as well. Why are we gonna tie? We might as well win, and we won the game. And it wasn't like we was holding the ball or doing anything like that. I mean, the score was 86-84. You know, and it wasn't like we were trying to stall. It's like whatever punch they gave us, we punched them right back, you know, and vice versa. So it was definitely a shootout. I watched that game like probably a month ago, just from a fan perspective. And it was a good game.
Talk about, coaching Kyle O'Quinn. He's done some good stuff in the NBA. Like, how does it feel seeing, somebody that you coach make it to the NBA?
I mean, Kyle O'Quinn, he's like a story of all stories. I mean, he had one scholarship offer from Norfolk State. To this day, I still don't understand how a kid that was 6'8", he's 6'10" now. He grew in Norfolk. He grew 2 inches in Norfolk, but he was 6'8" in New York City, and he was averaging like 20 points a game his senior year. I don't understand how no one else took a chance on him up there. Like, I'm blessed that no one else took a chance on him, but, New York City being the basketball mecca, like, how did he fall through the cracks? You know what I'm saying? And he fell. So I think it was like all destined to happen. It was like he fell through the cracks. He came to us, and, he did some great things, obviously. And to see him, now in his, I think, 8th or 9th year in the league now, he's made over $20-something million, for himself. And I see him giving back to the community. I saw he did something in Queens the other day. And it just shows that it's really true that, you can make it from anywhere. Like, a lot of times kids don't believe it, but like, he's like a walking testimony of that. You can, if you're good enough, you can make it from anywhere, because the NBA just want to recruit the best possible players.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Shout outs to Kyle O'Quinn. Good dude, man.
Yeah, definitely, man.
So 2013, 2014, you became the interim head coach. Like, what happened?
Coach Evans, through the success that we had, he ended up going to Florida International, FIU in Miami. And then really through I got the job in 2 hours, really. It was like he left kind of unexpectedly. It was a team meeting. The athletic director kind of met with the team. The team, unanimously said they wanted me to be the head coach.
Just like that.
Just like that. And then he went in, he talked to the president. He called me in the office. When he called me in the office, he was already he was still talking to the president. Actually, he said, I'm gonna go with him being my head coach for this year. And I mean, that's how it happened. Like, it's like it was no interview. It's like, unlike St. Mary's, where I had to go through a whole interview process, go through a week and everything. Like, I got the job here, Division I job, in 2 hours, and it was like I woke up as an assistant coach. I went to bed as a head coach. You know what I mean? It was like just like that. So that year, of course, it was like a lot of pressure, because the year before we went 16-0 in conference, and we had won 21 games. And of course, that was on top of just 2 years before that going to NCAA tournament with the whole Kyle O'Quinn thing. So, it was a lot of pressure on that. And then that year, one of my best players tore his ACL. But of course, nobody wants to, see that or hear that. So it's like, you got to keep pushing and pushing. We was fortunate enough to win 19 games though that year. So it kind of kept the program at a good trajectory and gave them the confidence to give me the full-time gig. And, I've been here ever since. But it was definitely a lot of pressure that interim year.
So talk about, Norfolk State University as a school.
Well, I think Norfolk State, one is, obviously it's an HBCU. I think most people know that. But I think it's like a hidden gem, and I say that, and not just because I'm the head coach here and I'm supposed to say things like that, but I really think that it's like a hidden gem, because it's right in the middle of the South and the North, so it's a good location. So you're able to get kids from both regions. We do have pretty good facilities, honestly. We got a $2 million scoreboard. We got one of the best scoreboards, that you'll see on the East Coast, in our facility. The school itself is always about 6,000, 6,500 students, with when you add in the grad students and things like that. So it makes it a family kind of close-knit community. It's good and bad for some of the kids, because it's like, if Rob Jones is doing bad in class, they're gonna know exactly who Rob Jones is, and they're gonna know, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not like you're a number. Like some universities, you're just in a class of 200 people, and they really don't know who you are. You're number 195 or something. You know what I'm saying?
Right. You could afford to be discreet in a class of 200 students, but when it's a small class, everybody knows your weaknesses, and that could be a bad thing.
Yeah, it can be, because now people, they're on. It's like a microscope now.
Right.
Also, it could be a good thing too, because also if Rob Jones is doing bad in the class, then they'll let the teacher know. I mean, or the coach or anybody know, advisor, like, hey, we can get him some help so he can do better. And so it's like it works both ways, and I think that it's a very family oriented environment. I think most kids who come here they really like it, especially the kids from up north, because there is an aspect of Southern hospitality. When I first got here, I was like, why is everybody saying hello and smiling to me? I thought they were trying to send me something, coming from New York, it's like, but, as you go through time, you realize that's just the way people are, and it kind of changes your, because you come up from New York, you got this hard exterior, like I don't want nobody talking to me, stuff like that, and then, it kind of just opens your eyes to different things, in life for real too.
So talk about, the MEAC. You've been very successful in the MEAC. So your record in conference is 84-28. Talk about the conference itself.
The conference itself is very underrated. There's a lot of, and I know people can look at it from many different perspectives. Many people look at it like, because of the all, predominantly Black, conference, or, is that, is it a stigma because of that? People look at it just because maybe the marketing is not as good as it should be, or, or the schools are in the conferences, HBCUs or whatever it might be. But the conference is just as good as any, it's like just as good as the NEC or the Big South or anything like that. We play those teams and have success against those teams all the time. Why is it perceived that way? I'm not totally sure, why is it perceived that way. But the conference, it has a lot of good players, a lot of good coaches. There's been success out of conference. It's like some of those 15-2 upsets. There's 3 of them that came from this conference. Us, Coppin, Hampton, all came from the same conference that have like these 15-2 upsets. So there's teams and coaches that are very underrated, and and hopefully that'll change soon.
Talk about what's a regular game day like at Norfolk State?
For me, or just in general?
In general. Like what can a recruit expect on game day?
A lot of excitement. I think that depending on what game it is too. Like when we play Hampton, you could expect chaos. Honestly, because that's like the rival game. It's like Duke, Carolina, right there. There's people standing up. It's standing room only. Like, I'm sure that they break the fire code every time we play, Hampton or something like that. Mm-hmm. But it's like, it's just ridiculous, man. It's like people are so into that game and things like that. On a normal basis, I think there is some excitement though. The students get involved. You got you got the band. Everybody kind of know like the HBCU bands are a little different. They kind of they get into it with current music and things like that. Just the whole atmosphere is just an upbeat atmosphere. It's like when you walk into that gym, you just feel like it just feels electric. Walking into that place. And we got a gym that holds almost 6,000 people. So it's like it's electric when you walk in there.
So yeah, like what's your pitch to for any kids that may want to come to school to play for Norfolk State? Like what's like some things that Robert Jones has to have, for that player to be in his program?
One, you gotta be able to play, right? So you gotta be able to play, because if I'm going to keep my job, I gotta have guys who can play. So, but then also you gotta be willing to like buy into like our culture, and it's not in our culture. We try to have a winning culture, but also a family culture too. So we try to like have be selfless instead of selfish. So you have to buy into being selfless. Because hopefully through good recruiting, you're gonna have other good players around you. So you're not going to be the man anymore. The reason why you're here is because you probably were the man in high school or the man in junior college or whatever it was, because that's how you usually get to Division I. But now you got to realize that everybody on this team was the man at some point in their life. So it's like, now how are we going to put it all together? So it's about being, selfless, man, and not being selfish. And everybody having a common cause, and that's, to win games and also graduate. It's like, that's a big thing too. Like you got to want to graduate, college, and we try to keep our guys on the right path to do such things.
How tough is this schedule? Like, the schools from the Power 6 conferences, like, because I know that Norfolk is always good, mm-hmm. and sometimes you guys could be a threat to a lot of big schools. Like, how tough is this scheduling?
It's extremely tough, exactly, because of our success that we've had. Like, it's funny that we'll like. There's scheduling boards and things like that. So like, say like you say, you post up, hey, I got November 10th open, stuff like that, So, maybe we have November 10th open too. So, hey man, you want to play, and stuff. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, we'll play, and then like a week later, they'll say something like, oh, coach wanted to go in a different direction, want to go in a different direction. But then like, they'll play like another team in our league though. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, so, you just, didn't want to play us, and we've had that happen. I mean, we got a situation going on right now for scheduling. I mean, because it gets harder and harder. It's like the success is good, but then it also, you get this curse. You can't get games, or if you do get games, there's now games that you really might not want to play, but you got to play them, anyway, because you got to play somebody. So it gets tougher and tougher every year. Scheduling gets tougher and tougher. So but it's also funny too, man. Like a lot of times, these coaches they'll how can I say, they'll badmouth your program, because they're in the MEAC, they're HBCU, whatever the case is.
Mm-hmm.
But then there'll be the same coaches that say that they don't want to play you. So it's like, which one is it? Like they'll try to recruit that, we're bad or whatever. But then when I ask them to play, they don't want to play. So what we do is we just keep a folder of all those guys who said they didn't want to play and the emails they send. So when we got recruits, we can say, hey man, some of your favorite schools, said that we're too good for them to play. So like
reverse psychology.
Yeah, so you figure it out from there.
Yeah, that's crazy. So in 2019, you won the Skip Prosser Man of the Year award, and you guys won 22 games. The second time you won 20 games in your coaching career. Talk about that season.
That season was a great season. I mean, it was magical, because like the year before, we had started the season off. It was almost the same as like the year before we won, against Missouri. Like the year before that, we were like 14-19. That was my only under 500 season, like overall as a coach. And we had started off that season 0-9, but then we finished up 14-10. So we had a good run towards the end of the year. And it's like we had the majority of that team coming back. And of course we had some pieces through recruiting and things like that. So it's like the foundation was set to have a pretty good year. And then we started off, a little slow, but then we started getting our mojo and we started, picking it up more and more and more. And then we go through the MEAC with 14-2 in conference. Was able to, get I think 5 guys made some kind of all conference team. I was able to get coach of the year in the MEAC. And then we get to the championship game. We got upset, really. We lost by 3 points, 50-47 in like an ugly game, and it's like the kids are distraught. They're distraught because like all year we've been pretty good and then we lose. So then, we get to NIT selection show. We figured out we're going to play Alabama. Everybody's still kind of down. Like nobody really wants to play in the NIT, at first, because it's like, especially when you just lost in the championship game of your conference tournament. Like if you lost first round and, by the time the NIT selection show come, it's kind of like worn off a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But so we play Alabama. And the days leading to Alabama, practice was sluggish. It was like trying to pull teeth to get us to work the way we're supposed to work. But then like the day of shoot around, when we're in the gym having shoot around and you see ESPN putting up all these signs and stickers of NIT, I think the guys finally realized that like, oh, wait a second, we are part of a national tournament here. And you can see like the juice started to come back a little bit and shoot around. And then we had like our last film session before we played them. And then we went out there. And I think Alabama was just kind of like just nonchalant, like whether they thought they were going to just beat us because they were the like number 1 seed, we were the 8th seed or something like that. But or maybe they didn't. I don't know. They didn't care as much. I don't know what happened. But our guys got fired up. Like they took it as like a sign of disrespect. And we went out there and then we did what we had to do, man. We were down almost 10 going to half, and then one of my kids made a 3, so we cut it to 7. And then we was like a 7-point game at halftime. And then from there it was the same thing in Missouri. Like, once you realize that you're close, that these guys are not like – because sometimes you psych yourselves out. Like as a smaller school, you think like, oh, SEC team is supposed to be like this or, and then when you realize that, like, what your coach is saying, that you put your shoes on just like them, when you realize that, then it's like, wait a second, we could beat them, And then that's exactly what happened. And then the second half, we just took over the second half and we won the game.
So talk about this past season's team. You guys went 16-15. 12-4 in the conference, another good record, tied for second. How was last season?
Last season was, I didn't know what last season was going to be, honestly, because we had 11 new guys. We were like the 10th or 9th or 10th youngest team in the country with 11 newcomers, And it was like, after the season we had with Alabama, of course, the expectations are high. They're through the roof. Your fan base is like, after you have the largest upset win in the NIT history, by point spread, and then, you come in, like everybody's all juiced up about the season. So, I'm telling people, you got to be cautious because we got 11 new guys. So we had some bumps and bruises. We had a good win in in December, I think it was, against Bowling Green, who was like at that time one of the top 5 mid majors, or top 10 mid majors in the country at that time. And then we had from there we went to conference, and we started getting like our little flow together, and we were in first place a lot of the year, and we were kind of bouncing between first and second, like a lot of the year too. And it was like really a blessing, because it's like with 11 new guys, I mean, you're supposed to kind of be bad.
Sorry.
Bless you, good brother.
Thanks.
And then you're supposed to be bad, but we weren't bad, and we going into the tournament, which got canceled, of course, because of COVID, was that we had a 3-game win streak, and we were the highest rated net. We had the highest net ranking of any team in the MEAC, like going into the tournament. We were like 20 spots higher than anybody else. So it was like we thought that we had a great chance of winning that tournament this year, but unfortunately, it's coulda, shoulda, woulda, because we couldn't play due to the unfortunate COVID situation.
Speaking of COVID, like, how are the conversations going on with like with the players now? Like, what are they like? What are you telling them like during this period of time?
I mean, through the COVID time, everybody's kind of at this point kind of anxious to get back. As some other schools are starting to come back, my players are asking when we're going to come back. And every state is different. So Virginia is different than New York or anything like that. So we're just going along the state guidelines, and once the state guidelines allows us to fully come back, and of course the state and the school allow us to come back, then we'll come back and start getting ready for the season. But there is talks of having a season, making sure that we do have a season. So that's positive talk and everything like that. But the kids, obviously they're just getting antsy. We try to tell them to be as safe as possible still. Don't just think that COVID just went away. It might have went down a little bit, but it didn't go away. Like it's still out there, So, we got to just, try to stay cautious. And then when we come back systematically and make things happen. I think the bigger thing too that's going on, obviously with these protesting and stuff like that, is to and my team, is a predominantly Black team. Is just making sure that we understand what's going on, and we're doing stuff the safe way if we do want to protest and things like that. Just try to go about it like that.
Yeah. So, talk about some of the standout players that we should be expecting next year at Norfolk.
I think that we do have a kid from New York. Right now, he's waiting for his waiver. He needs a waiver to play next year. But if he does get the waiver, he should be probably preseason player of the year. Jermaine Bishop. He played at Holy Cross High School in New York. He was our leading scorer this year. He made first team on MEAC this year. So he's definitely a kid that's going to be a standout. We got another kid, Joe Bryant from Norfolk, which is our second leading scorer. He'll be a junior next year. We look for great things from him. Devontae Carter, which is another kid that was like our fourth leading scorer. He comes back. And we got a kid who made an all-rookie team, Tyrese Jenkins. He's like a 6'7" guard. And his future is the ceiling is high. He really started to understand as the season went on. He only averaged about 4.5 points a game overall, but the last 10 to 12 games, he averaged almost 10 points a game. So, we look forward to him being, have a real good year next year. So, those are the main guys. We returned 12 out of 13 guys, so it should be a good year on paper. We do lose a kid that made all conference, and now, of course, that makes a difference. But we returned 12 out of 13, so we look forward to it being okay.
So this is a question that I like to ask all of my guests. If you could go back to 1990, what would you tell Robert Jones as a 6th grader?
Oh man, I don't know what I would tell him. I think that's a good question. I don't know if a lot of your guests get stumped like I'm stumped, but that's a good question. I mean, I would just tell him, man, just keep working, because you can live out your dreams. I think Robert Jones as a 6th grader, growing up in poverty and things like that, is like, sometimes your dreams can get deterred. You don't understand like you could really do anything that you really want in this world. And for me, like I said, every day I wake up is a dream. I didn't hit the lottery, but yet I hit the lottery, because it's like there's so many coaches out there that coach, and for me to be a Division I head coach, it's a blessing, and it's like winning the lottery, man. So I think you can do anything that you want to do, and understand that tough times don't last, but tough people do. Like the situation is tough for the moment. Don't give up. Keep plugging, and you can live out your dreams, because now, like I said, I'm living out a dream. Like if I can't play in the NBA, which of course, I would, everybody would love to, being a Division I head coach is the next closest thing. You know, it's like, you know, you get a lot of media, fanfare, everything like NBA players do, you know. And in some schools, not necessarily my school, but at some schools, you know, you get almost the same salaries as NBA players. So it's like, you know, it's like you're living out a dream, man.
Final question. What's next in the future for Robert Jones and the Norfolk State Spartans?
Well, I think for Norfolk State, you know, I always tell people I want to be the first HBCU to go to the Sweet 16. You know, that's like my big goal, man. You know, I think that when we beat Missouri in 2012, you know, when we played Florida, we were one game away from the Sweet 16. So I'm like, if we were that close then, why can't we do it again? You know, and of course, it's going to take a lot of hard work and good players and belief. But it's like, you know, if you could do it once, you know, if you could get that close, then you could get over the hump eventually. So that's my thing that I want to do. And just for us in general, just try to keep progressing as a program, just keep trying to get, you know, nationally recognized for what we are, you know, and not just saying that, you know, we're in the MEAC or HBCU. I tell people all the time, it's like Gonzaga's in the West Coast Conference. Unless you're a basketball aficionado, you can't tell me 4 teams is in the West Coast Conference. You know, like, but you can tell me Gonzaga and St. Mary's and stuff like that, you know. So we want to be like that. You know, we want to be like, okay, if you can't tell me the whole MEAC conference, I want you to understand. I want you to, you know, respect Norfolk State when you hear that name. So we're going to keep striving for that respect and keep striving to try and make it better and better.
Thank you, Coach, for coming on with me to tell your story, and I wish you nothing but success at Norfolk State moving forward.
All right, thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
All right, guys, this is episode 27. Keep showing that support. Check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and IGTV. Be safe, be blessed. Peace.